You ever think about what happens when a crisis hits? What if instead of hitting the pause button on the world, it actually slammed on the fast forward button? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're diving into the story of China's Great Acceleration, a wild time when years of digital change got squeezed into just a few weeks.
See, you gotta understand, the pandemic in China wasn't just some big disruption. It was more like a crucible. It took all these digital trends that were already kind of bubbling under the surface and just cranked the heat all the way up, forging a brand new reality, seemingly overnight.
And this brings us to the core idea of this whole thing, the new normal, or as they say in China, Xinricheng. Now, this isn't about getting back to normal, not at all. It's about a permanent merger of our physical and our digital lives into one single hybrid existence.
Okay, so this hybrid reality sounds a little abstract, right? What does it actually look like on the ground? Well, let's start with something we can all relate to: entertainment. When hundreds of millions of people were stuck at home, the very idea of a night out had to be completely reinvented. I mean, just look at these numbers. It's wild. Tencent's game Honor of Kings, which, by the way, was already 5 years old, just suddenly exploded. Its daily users went from a peak of 31 million during the 2019 holiday to an incredible 54 million just 1 year later. That's a massive jump.
But here's the thing, right? This wasn't just about people being bored and killing time. The secret sauce here is that Honor of Kings is a team game. People weren't just playing to play. They were connecting. They were teaming up with friends they couldn't actually see in person. Gaming became a social lifeline, filling that basic human need for community right when we needed it the most.
And this huge digital shift wasn't just happening in the gaming world. Oh no, it sent total shockwaves through the entire film industry. With movie theaters all shut down, the producers of a huge blockbuster movie, Lost in Russia, did something nobody had ever done before. They just skipped theaters entirely and sold the streaming rights to ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, for a jaw-dropping $95 million.
And you can bet the traditional movie industry was not happy about this. The reaction was instant and it was furious. They saw this as a direct attack, an existential threat to their whole way of doing business. A line was drawn in the sand, a battle between the old guard of cinema and the new, rising power of streaming.
Okay, so that's movies and games. But this Great Acceleration went way beyond just how people had fun. It fundamentally rewired the most basic, essential parts of daily life, starting with something as simple as getting groceries.
Think about it. Cities locked down, and suddenly everyone needs their food delivered. Demand just went through the roof, jumping by as much as 7 times. This put an absolutely unbelievable amount of pressure on the existing delivery systems and forced companies to get very creative, very fast.
And this is where things get really ingenious. You had this problem, right? Restaurants were closed, so their staff had nothing to do. At the same time, supermarkets like Alibaba's HEMA were totally overwhelmed and desperate for more people. So what happened? They came up with this brilliant sharing employees model. They basically just struck a deal to share staff, creating a lifeline that saved both jobs and businesses. Now, this massive pressure cooker of a situation really showed which business models could handle the heat. You had HEMA with its all-in-one model, where they tried to control everything themselves: stores, inventory, delivery, and it just buckled. But then you had JD Daojia, which was a platform model that coordinated dozens of different supermarket chains. It proved to be way more flexible and resilient.
And the results? Well, they speak for themselves. JD's platform didn't just survive, it absolutely soared. We're talking sales growth of a staggering 470%, all while keeping its promise of 1-hour delivery. It was a massive, decisive win for the platform approach.
So we've seen entertainment, we've seen shopping, but this rapid rewiring of society didn't stop there. It pushed right into two of the most fundamental areas of our lives: how we work and how we take care of our health.
All of a sudden, seeing a doctor didn't mean you had to leave your house. You could hop on a trusted platform like Dingsheng Yisheng and get a virtual consultation for just a couple of bucks to handle minor issues or get a prescription. It just completely lowered the barrier for people to get medical advice.
And when it came to working from home, it wasn't even a contest. One app just blew everyone else out of the water: Alibaba's DingTalk. It totally crushed its rival, Enterprise WeChat. And the secret sauce wasn't just better video calls. It was because it quickly added a super vital feature for the time: a system for employees to report their daily health status.
But here's the part that's really surprising. You'd think remote work would explode in the big tech hubs like Beijing or Shanghai, right? Nope, the biggest growth was actually in the smaller second and third tier cities. And why? Well, in a lot of those places, public transit was more crowded and less developed. So for them, working from home wasn't just a perk, it was a really practical way to reduce risk.
Okay, so let's pull all of this together. What's the big takeaway here? The key thing to get is that these weren't just temporary fixes. They weren't just band-aids for a crisis. The Great Acceleration has permanently changed the way Chinese society functions.
What we're seeing now is this hybrid new normal really taking shape. All the everyday routine stuff, like getting your groceries or a quick checkup for a cold, is moving online. It's efficient, it's accessible, and what that does is it frees up the offline, in-person experiences to become more special, more premium.
But honestly, the biggest, most profound impact of all might just be this. The digital divide is starting to close. For the first time, high-quality education, top-notch healthcare, and modern retail are becoming accessible far beyond the rich coastal megacities. This is leveling the playing field and really empowering the economies of China's huge interior.
You know, when you think about it, China basically ran this massive, unplanned, society-wide experiment in building a hybrid future in real time. The results are in, and it leaves us all with a pretty powerful question, doesn't it? Which of these accelerated changes are already becoming a permanent part of our own new normal?